if you count the playoff games,
Yeah.
you get an average of 4.5 songs per game requested.
Oh no, it's more than that.
749
Yeah.
divided by 168.
Yeah, but I don't do the road games. I only do the home games.
Oh, that's right.
So you have to double that number.
Oh,
It's roughly,
can we do a phone a friend? Do you have a friend at Harvard we could call? So that'd be what, 9?
Probably
Nine.
about 9.
Okay.
And that
Good
does-
job, Ben.
Yeah.
The one preparation piece you had to do, a little bit of math, you suck at it. Good
No,
work.
no, it's a common mistake.
I know it's hard to believe, but folks, springtime is coming. The summer will be here. And if you come to McCoy Stadium, you get to, lucky for you, you get to hear my voice. But if you go to Fenway Park, the music, that amazing sound of a ballpark organ that just fills the air is played by one man. He is the official organ player for Fenway Park. Josh Kantor joins me in the car. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for the lift, Ben.
They don't bring you down to spring training, huh? You don't?
No, we've talked about it a few times, and I'm receptive to it, and they're receptive to it, but it's a weird, the schedule's weird down there because up here they play like at home every day for a week, and down there they might play a home game, and then a road game, and then a home game, and then a road game. So, you might be there on a lot of off days, and I only get sort of so many days away from my real life responsibilities here in Boston, my day job, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I'd like to go try it sometime, maybe just for a few days. I think it'd be really fun. But I mean, I certainly get my fill of baseball during the regular season and postseason months when they come back up here. My own spring training the last several years has been to go to the South by Southwest Music Festival in Texas.
Oh, okay.
And usually I just bring my little travel size accordion that fits under the seat on the airplane.
Very
and I
smart.
just kind of hustle gigs when I get down there with friends or friends of friends. And it's fun because I get to go somewhere warm and I get to, eat delicious tacos and and hang out with friends that I don't get to see often enough and play music that I enjoy. And that's kind of like my spring training. It's where I get my reps in,
Right. Well,
to
that's
sort
what
of
I was
get
going to
conditioned
ask.
for the season.
How do you prepare for that? So let's take a few steps back.
Yeah.
Just for people, to get to know you a little differently. You're not native of Boston, although you've been here a while.
Yeah.
How did you get to Boston, and when did you start playing music? When did you start taking lessons? What did you play? Kind of your little musical 411.
Sure. I came to Boston in 1990 when I finished high school.
Okay.
And I went to college. I went to Brandeis University in Waltham, just a few miles west of Boston.
Great school.
I had a good experience there. A lot of stuff that I learned there, I think, kind of, paved the way for a lot of music stuff, Fenway and otherwise, that I've been able to do. So I've been here ever since. It's almost 30 years now. But I went to high school in Evanston, Illinois, which is the first town north of Chicago.
Okay.
So that was kind of, I don't know, I was a teenager and I was just sort of experiencing, a sense of independence, and it was the first time I'd sort of lived in or near a big city, and there was a subway there, so I could just hop on the train to go to record stores or baseball games or concerts. So I ended up doing a lot of that kind of thing. And the Cubs were a little bit closer geographically, but the White Sox were also really fun. And I had a cousin who lived down near the White Sox park, who's a couple years older. I really looked up to him, and he would, take me to those games. And so I have a ton of fond memories from that, and that was where I first discovered Nancy Faust, who was the White Sox organist.
Okay.
She was there for 41 years,
Sure.
And she's just a legend and kind of the preeminent
Absolutely.
sports organist. So
Absolutely, she is.
I discovered her at 13 or 14, not knowing that she was, her stature, but just I was totally enchanted by everything she was doing. And I remember thinking as early as, 9th grade, like, man, that must be the coolest job in the world. I'd love to try that someday. Not thinking realistically it would ever happen, certainly not on a major league level and not at a, quintessentially historic park. But I guess I sort of lucked out in those regards. I went to grade school down in Athens, Georgia. My dad was teaching at the University of Georgia. I took music lessons, piano lessons all through grade school. Mostly classical, and a lot of those chops have kind of eroded because I haven't kept up with it.
Sure.
But in high school, I played in a lot of rock bands and musical theater productions, and then continued doing a lot of that kind of thing in college. In college, I started doing live accompaniment for improvisational theater, which I found to be
That's a challenge.
It is very challenging.
Wow.
It was really fun, and it turns out it's an excellent transferable skill to the ballpark, because it's the same idea that you're watching players on a stage. You don't know what's going to happen next. But you're trying to always be ready with a music cue that leads the action or follows the action or underscores the action in some way, and you try to be clever with it when you can, and or try to sort of support, the primary thing that's happening. And so I think about that a lot. I draw on that training and that experience a lot when I'm doing the ballpark stuff. And our DJ at Fenway, TJ Connolly, who's fantastic.
Shout out.
What's that?
Shout out to Mr. Connolly.
Oh, shout out to Mr. Connolly. Yeah, he's also the DJ for the New England Patriots,
Wow.
whom you may have heard of.
I've heard of that.
He's also recently become the DJ for the Boston Bruins, whom you may have heard of.
He is nonstop.
Yeah, he's doing it, and he's great at it, and we get along great, and we play off each other really well, and we're constantly communicating via headset, before the games, after the games, during the games, giving each other cues and suggestions and feedback. And he also comes from that improv theater background. He was doing the same kind of thing for improvisational theater groups, but using recorded music.
Okay.
So we have this kind of like common shorthand language that we're able to speak to each other that works great. It's very efficient, when you have to communicate something quickly.
Yeah.
And, especially things like, I was telling somebody the other day, sometimes it's a little bit like when there's a fly ball in the outfield and two outfielders are coming in on it, and they have to decide which one of them is going to catch it without bumping into each other, without being able to look at each other, and making sure that one of them actually does catch it. So sometimes that's what it's like for us at the ballpark. Something will happen in the game, and we have to kind of call it, say, I got it, or you got it, and then be ready to respond to those cues.
That's so awesome. I mean, just the thought of it. And, there's a lot of people who are in sports who are not athletes, myself, yourself, Listen, I love a pickup game of football or catch or something.
Sure.
But, we're not... I'm not. I'll speak for myself. I'm not the athletic type.
No, me neither. It was clear to me by about 8th grade, as I started to age out of Little League, I was like, this is probably the end of the road for me as far as competitive
Gonna
sports.
hang up those cleats now.
Exactly.
And, trade it in.
Prepare my Hall of Fame speech now.
Absolutely. Trade in for the flats so you could play the pedal board on an organ or something.
Yeah.
But so you started playing the organ at Fenway when?
2003.
Okay.
I came in the same year as David Ortiz.
Oh wow.
So I picked a good time to start.
You guys often go out to dinner and reminisce, I'm sure, right? That seems like the.
Yep.
So you came in 2003,
yep.
And so you have been there during this amazing run of games.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, the last 15, 16 years has kind of been the golden age for the Red Sox, unless you count maybe like their first 15 or 20 years, like in the early 20th century, which
Sure.
nobody who's alive today can remember. So in terms of anybody's memory, this has been the golden age, and my timing was fortuitous in terms of coming at that time and being able to see the team have so much success, winning World Series, multiple World Series obviously is like the highlight of that. But even, there's been plenty of other years where they weren't the best, but they were close to the best, and they at least made it fun and interesting all summer long to entertain people and keep people's hopes up and make it a fun place to go to every day. And they had a couple of seasons where they were lousy, and that happens when you're with a team for long enough. It's
Sure.
inevitable. And those were interesting too. Those were good learning experiences for me, because all of a sudden I was like, oh wow, it's a different. My job is a little bit different when the team's in last place. I can't necessarily rely on some of the tried and true stuff. If you try to be too boisterous, fans will think, rightly so, that you're almost kind of like insulting their intelligence. How dare you tell us to cheer up?
Right.
This team stinks.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of find that balance of how to be, a little lighthearted and a little whimsical and a little like, hey, chin up, but without being sort of patronizing.
Sure.
With it.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, the fact of the matter is, yes, there's a core group of fans there who they want to be, manager as much as anybody else.
Yeah, right.
But there's a faction of people who go there and we see this at McCoy and minor league parks all across, and major league parks all across the country. There's a faction of people there that may be their summer vacation.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap endeavor to go to
That's right.
a professional, a major league game. It's a little more affordable on the minor leagues, but the fact of the matter is, for some people, that may be their Disney.
Yeah.
And you, along with the DJ, but you especially, you're providing that soundtrack for some people, their first ever trip to the ballpark, or it could be an older person who's, this last chance I'll probably get.
Yeah.
And so you play such a quintessential role, but it's an interesting take. If the team is in a bit of a slump or, they're not winning, how do you maintain without playing, Funeral Dirge by Chopin? Chopin wrote that, right?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Chopin, or
yes,
something like that.
It's funny. I was just looking at some Chopin letters the other day. I'm a music librarian by day.
Oh, where at?
At Harvard University.
Ah, I've heard of that place too.
Yes.
We've got a lot of things in common. I've heard of a lot of the things you do. I went to Harvard.
So it's funny
once.
You mentioned Chopin, because I think it was just yesterday I was looking at some of his old letters.
Oh, wow.
Including a long letter he wrote to his parents, where he was mostly complaining about how the people he was staying with wouldn't let him eat the kind of bread that he wanted to eat.
Wow.
But
all right, interesting.
that's a major tangent. I kind of want to reply to what you were talking about, as far as, kind of that vacation experience for people and the role that I play in it. It was not something that I necessarily understood when I first started, but over time I've come to understand that and have just, it's very humbling, to have that role and to take it seriously and to realize that for some people this is a really special trip, a once in a lifetime, or once a year, or once every few years, or maybe it's their last time coming. And I have the opportunity to meet people who come from all over the world, and I love chatting with them, and I love asking, where are you from? Have you been here before? What team did you root for growing up? What do you like about Fenway? What do you not like about it? What kind of music do you like? All these things. It's just amazing to meet people and hear all these stories. And now it's to the point, I think, because I'm, pretty present on social media during the baseball season, where, people will message me ahead of time and they'll tell me, like, I'm bringing my boyfriend next Tuesday and he's never been to Fenway before and he really loves this song, could you play it? Or somebody might say, I'm bringing my grandma for her 90th birthday, and
oh, wow.
The last time she was at Fenway was 65 years ago, and this was her wedding song when she got married back then, and could you play it? It's things like that, and you realize, like, it's really meaningful to people. The songs can be a bit disposable to me sometimes, because as soon as I learn one and finish playing it, I have to sort of move on, turn the page and move to the next one.
Sure.
Just because of the workload. But sometimes people will come to me and say, do you remember 5 years ago when I asked you to play this song and you played it? It was really like one of the coolest moments of my life.
You played it in between this inning.
Yeah, and
the weather was.
It's extremely moving to hear those stories, but the truth is, like, I don't remember it. And I'll sometimes tell them, like, I play so many I don't remember, but it means a lot to me
that they remember
that you remember it, and that it means something to you, and that these are stories that are maybe going to live on for people the same way that I remember certain experiences that I had as a boy growing up, going to ball games, whether it was something that happened in the game or something that I was attuned to, like with Nancy Faust playing the organ. Those are beautiful memories that are permanently burned into my brain. And so to whatever extent I have an opportunity to kind of like pay that forward is like, I don't know, it's really special.
That's so awesome. So the fact of the matter is that's how I got to know you, was through Twitter.
Okay.
Because I saw a post you had.
Yeah.
You shared an image, and I'm sure people can read this plainly. This should be at the DMV for your next eye check.
Yes, I think it's 4-point font. If I remember correctly.
Something very small. But this is an image, and people can find you on Twitter.
Yes.
I will link that in the show notes.
Okay.
But this is 749 requests from the 2018 seasons. I did the math.
Yes.
Well, thanks to a calculator, because
Yes.
I'm not super smart. I
Yeah.
can't just do it in my head like the people over at Harvard can. But if you count the playoff games,
Yeah.
you get an average of 4.5 songs per game requested.
Oh no, it's more than that.
749
Yeah.
divided by 168.
Yeah, but I don't do the road games. I only do the home games.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
So you have to double that number.
Oh.
So half the games are at home and half are on the road.
So,
So it's probably roughly...
Can we do a phone a friend? Do you have a friend at Harvard we could call? So that'd be what, 9?
Probably
9.
about 9.
Okay.
And that
Good job, Ben.
Yeah.
The one preparation piece you had to do, a little bit of math, you suck at it. Good
No,
work.
no, it's a common mistake. I mean, if I had to work 162 games, I don't know. I'd have to pace myself in a very different way.
Hey, if I had to work all 140 games of the Plus X game, I mean, probably wouldn't be wearing this ring right now. Susan would have a voice in that.
Yeah,
but you're right. I just do the games, the home games there. So on average, 9 requests per game,
and that doesn't count repeats. That's 9 unique requests. So
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
get a request in April and then I get the same request in July and the same request in September and I play it all 3 times, that only counts as 1.
Right. So how do you, if you don't know the song,
Yeah.
do you have just a never-ending book of sheet music up there? Has Dr. Charles Steinberg mapped it all out for you? How does it work?
No. Dr. Charles Steinberg has not mapped anything out for me. He's a nice man, but
He didn't pen the manuscript for you.
No. No, I mean, the training was like me training myself on the job for the most part, which was terrifying at times, but is also, you reap some benefits from that after you get through it. I think, I looked at that list, I put that list together and I counted them up, and it was roughly 30%, or I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was about 20% where the request came in and I was like, oh yeah, I know that one, no problem.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was 50% where I had some level of familiarity, either a little bit or a fair amount, but maybe I hadn't necessarily played it before, or I'd played it only once or twice before a few years ago. So those I needed to kind of refresh myself. So I just pull up the little stream on my laptop of the song, listen to it in an earbud, listen to it once or twice, kind of get the feel of it and be like, okay, I'm good to go. The other 30% were truly like songs I had never heard before or had no recollection of ever having heard before, because people's musical tastes are all over the map, and I can't be on top of all of it. I try to pay attention to as much of it as I can and to know as many songs up front, but I don't necessarily keep close tabs on like current top 40, but a lot of people want to hear that kind of stuff, and I think people get a kick out of hearing Taylor Swift, as
Played
an
over
organ
a ball.
instrumental, because it's not
yeah.
necessarily the kind of thing you associate with like the traditional organ.
Bad blood, yes.
Yeah.
On an organ,
Right.
It's
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Well, bad blood in an organ is not good in the medical sense, but it's, right. So that's the other element. You're not playing the full song. You've got a short cut of it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm playing 20 or 30 seconds, or at the most I'm probably playing like 2.5 minutes. That's like during a commercial break, like after the third out when they switch sides and the pitcher comes and warms up. So it's never the full song. So I try to hit, the most interesting part of the song, the catchiest part of the song, the hook, the chorus, the refrain that people know the words and can recognize the melody and will sing along to. And I try to, if it's a song I don't know, I try to identify like, okay, what's the nugget here?
Right,
What's
right.
the kernel that people are going to latch onto? And then I figure out timing-wise how to make it work. I wish I was better at reading sheet music, although most of these requests that come in probably don't even exist as sheet music.
Yeah.
I used to know how to read sheet music. I'm not very good at it anymore. Certainly can't really do it on the fly.
All those guilty of the same, please raise your hand.
It happens. But I mean, that's I started playing rock and roll and it was all over. As far as sight reading, but I can read a jazz fake chart if I have to.
You do what you gotta do.
But I've had, like, not to be immodest, but like I've had good ear training, and the more I do it at Fenway, the sharper that gets, and I've gotten to the point now where I come in for a game with a blank slate and a little bit of fear, because I'm like, geez, what's gonna happen? I don't know. Like, how's this gonna go? I don't know what's gonna come in, and then somehow they come in and you just take them one at a time and you learn them and you play them, and then at the end you look back at the list, you're like, wow, I did that. That's sort of remarkable. It's sort of like how like a writer will talk about when they're writing an essay and they're just staring at the blank screen or the blank piece of paper, and they're like, how am I going to turn this blank page into something that people will enjoy, and it's kind of similar with those requests.
And you really don't have like a writer or somebody who's doing it. You know, there's a start time. There's a point where they say, "Okay, organ, go." You know, it's like cue.
Yeah, there are deadlines, so to speak. Yeah.
You know, it's so you have to have something there. So that's awesome. All right, you won't offend anybody at all. If we were to pull up your music collection right now, top 5 favorite artists.
Top 5 favorite artists. Number 1, Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
Without question.
Sure.
I have been in love with his work since I was 3 or 4 years old, and that has never ceased. It has been a constant for me. You know, every couple of years I do a deep dive into the back catalog and discover new things and rediscover old things, and he's the number one for me. He's probably why I was so drawn to keyboard instruments in the first place.
Number 2.
Number 2. Gosh, see, after that, it's, you know, after that I have a bunch that I really...
Everybody else.
No, I have a bunch that I love.
Sure.
But I don't know how I would rank them. I mean, I could think, like, you know, the Beatles are seminal, and I have spent a ton of time, you know, getting to know their stuff, and I'm one of those people who's gone through those periods of, like, you know, doing the A-B comparison of the stereo mix and the mono mix and trying to, you know, nerd out on all that kind of stuff. So they're probably up there on the list. I mean, that's an obvious choice, but it's, you know, but it is. Gosh, who else? I mean, I certainly went on a big, lengthy Bob Dylan kick, you know, where I was trying to unearth all the stuff that was harder to find and try to glean some insight from that. Those records have been extremely important to me at different times in my life. But it, you know, it's sort of constantly in flux because I just go through phases. There might be a couple months where I'm really listening to one or two particular artists a lot, and then I move on to something else, and then move on to the next thing. And so, I don't know. It's hard to name just a few without ending up naming scores.
Sure. No, and I appreciate the ones you did share. I think a lot of people will agree that, you know, that you know, between Stevie Wonder, the Beatles, and Bob Dylan, 3 of those are certainly been just pivotal figures in music, just in general, and that's so great. I went through the list.
Okay.
It's I used a magnifying glass.
I applaud you for that. That's real work.
And this was 2018's list.
Yes.
I did not see on here anywhere. Incidentally, we're passing a school full of children as they're walking probably to for recess. I didn't see on here anywhere Baby Shark, and I'm a little surprised.
Well,
so has that just not come in, or are you like anti-shark? I mean, Shark Week just not you?
No, I'm not anti. So that request, I guess, never came in. I can say though that song was not on my radar until after the season ended.
Okay.
I don't have kids, so that's probably the main reason why. But
he's not keeping up with Kids Bop, you know, folks.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come through his selection there on.
But my
iTunes.
brother, who lives here in the area, he has 2 young, fantastic daughters, and they're into it. And so through them, I kind of learned about it, and I listened to it, and I was like, wow, that's quite an earworm. And then I saw an article about how it had gone into the top 40 charts, and that was like the first time in decades that a song aimed at, you know, preschoolers was doing so well on the charts. So I suspect that, you know, come spring it will I'll have to work up a proper rendition and learn it and annoy people.
Well, because I want to provide a service to you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sad that they didn't invite you to go down to JetBlue Park. We have here the very first keyboard I ever had as a child, a Yamaha PSS 30. Shout out to Uncle Bruce for getting this for me.
There's a little
back in the day.
placement for you.
This is not the original keyboard. The original one is probably just in pieces somewhere.
Yeah.
So you flip it on there
Wow.
and allow
I had one
you.
of these. I had one of these in high school, and I used to plug in the little earphone jack and play it on the school bus.
So
But,
I'll allow you, as I drive through the quiet streets
Yeah.
of the Cambridge area here. Let's see, you can use rhythm there. It's
Oh, yeah.
You can only push 2 notes at a time.
Okay.
There are 4 fresh AA batteries in there.
Okay.
And we got about 15 hours left of tape in these cameras.
Oh
So
my God. That's yeah.
you'll get it right.
Yeah. Well, here's take 1.
Yeah.
I've only heard this song once or twice before, but let's see if I remember it, and let's see if I can get a good tempo going. That seems all right.
Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark. Mookie shark doo 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 doo. Mookie shark doo 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 doo. Mookie shark doo 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 doo. Cora shark doo 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 doo. Cora shark doo 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 doo. Cora shark doo 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 doo. Cora shark. Wow, that was, I think you're ready for the
Stop.
season there, good sir. Very well done.
Holy
A round of
moly.
applause, ladies and gentlemen. Please show the love. Folks, if you want to learn more about this fine young man and all his efforts there, so wait a second, since 2003, do you have a tally of how many games you've played?
I know that I hit the 1,300 mark at some point this past season, but I
Wow.
don't know the exact number.
All right, folks. Well, follow this guy. You can follow him on Twitter. You can find him. Are you on any other platforms there? Just Twitter. Twitter's a good one.
I'm on Instagram, but if you want to
Okay.
talk to me, Twitter's where I'm at.
Twitter's the place to be. It's like
Yeah.
MasterCard everywhere you want to be. That's where Twitter is. Find him on Twitter. If you go into a game, don't give him a hard one. Ben Folds is always a great artist. You could send him. I only noticed one Ben Folds song on this list too. I was as a big Ben Folds fan.
Okay.
but that's a tough book to.
No, I mean, I think I don't know. That might have been the only one that came in. I mean, I would encourage people, like,
give a bit of notice.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't be about trying to stump me. It should be like something that you would really enjoy hearing, a favorite song of yours, or something you think would sound interesting on the organ, something that maybe a friend or a relative who you're there with at the game is a song that they would especially enjoy. And if you give a little background to the reason for your request, I tend to, I'm not saying I automatically favor those and bump them up in the queue, but I tend to be just drawn to them, like, as a human being. My heart kind of connects with when somebody says, I'm here with my wife, and this is like the first song that we listened to after our kid was born, and would you play it? And I'm like, that's really sweet. I'm going to do that,
Folks, put some thought into it. Find him, follow him, and even if you're just going to show the love, give him a thumbs up. Josh, thanks for joining me in the car today and driving
thanks,
around.
Ben.
Glad I could help you with a little bit of the spring training.
Oh, yeah.
And,
That was great.
go Red Sox, right?
Go Red Sox.
April what for you guys?
April 9th is the home opener. I think
you
the
guys.
first 10 or 11 games are on the road out
Okay.
west, and then they come home April 9th. It's a Tuesday at 2 p.m. They always have the home opener on a weekday afternoon, which is great fun. Not only because you're so excited that spring is here, but it's in the daytime, and everybody who's at the ballpark is in an extra good mood because they're playing hooky to be there.
Absolutely.